Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out to meet the candidates who would like your vote in the upcoming election. My name's Jeremy Perry. I'm with New Roots, which is an organization that you probably haven't heard of because we're in a very soft launch period, but we're going to be working to hold events to help people get to know the community better and get to know their neighbors and really dig new roots in this community of New Westminster, which is a great place to live. So New Westminster is located on the unceded territory of the Kakite First Nation. And I think it's just important to recognize that we're here electing a government for an area that is on stolen land that we haven't fully reconciled with yet. So that is ongoing work, and it takes all of us to really be part of that. So the format of this evening, all 5 candidates for the MLA position have agreed to join us, and they all are you're going to get a chance to speak to all of them. So first, we will hear from each candidate. They'll get 1 minute. The power of Zoom does mean that I will be using the mute button if they go over a minute. So if they get cut off, blame me, or well, blame them for going too long, but I am going to be really strict with that minute so we can keep the evening moving. And then we'll break into breakout rooms so that you can have some more intimate small group discussions with the candidates and hopefully get a chance to get all of your questions answered. So and we also are really fortunate this evening to have partnered with NewWestTV. They are going to be taking the footage from this evening and putting it all together so that people who were unable to make it at the live event will be able to watch the video and get a feel for who the candidates are, what the issues are that matter to them, and really get an understanding of who they want to vote for. So big shout out to NewWestTV and Deepak there for partnering and making this a reality. And so without further ado, let's move on to the introductions from each candidate. The order will be by random draw, so we will see who we hear from first. And first is Benny Ogden.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for putting on this event. It's exciting. And my name is Benny Ogden. I'm the Conservative Party candidate for New Westminster. And my goal is to be the most approachable and accessible MLA that New West has ever seen.
All right, thank you very much, Benny. The next candidate to introduce themselves will be Cyrus C.
All right, thanks, Jeremy, and welcome everybody. First of all, I want to thank Jeremy and the New Roots team for putting this event together. I'm really excited to be here today to have a conversation with everyone. I'm running to be your MLA for the BC Green Party because when I'm growing up, my parents tried to instill a duty to ensure that each generation is better off than the last. And, you know, as a father of 2, I really would like to make sure that my kids' future is secure. And I really would like to, when you look at all the crises that are going on and the climate crisis and global pandemic and all the issues that are going on in New West with affordability and housing and transportation, I really would like to make sure that community comes first in all of the decision-making in representing Victoria. And I think a lot of my work that I've been doing in the community with the PAC and education system, I think is gonna come really valuable. And I look forward to speaking with everybody today. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you so much. And next we will hear from Don Wilson.
Yes, I'd also like to thank the organizers for arranging this event. You know, this doesn't happen out of nowhere. There's organizers, there's moderators, and you know, if these people don't step up to volunteer to make this happen and reach out to us and organize this event, it doesn't happen. It just simply, it simply doesn't happen. So thank you so much. Also to everybody who checked in today, I can't see all of you. I can only see about 30 or 40 names. So I don't know who you all are, but thank you so much for joining us tonight. And to my fellow candidates as well. You know, I'm honored to be here again with you. We were discussing this last night, most of us. I'm honored to be discussing with you and competing for this fundamental, important position. I'm running for the BC Libertarian Party. I'm the party leader. I'm also a family lawyer in New Westminster. I look forward to this debate.
Oh, sorry,
thank you.
Time's up. All right, and next we have Lorraine Brett. All right, Lorraine.
Thank you. My name's Lorraine Brett. I was inspired to get into politics while working on the 2005 election campaign of former New Westminster BC Liberal MLA Joyce Murray. Joyce is the only non-NDP MLA elected in New Westminster since 1952. In my work with other strong female candidates in politics, I learned that running for office is a way to raise your voice to bring about positive change. In 2020, I'm raising my voice to draw attention to the NDP government's grossly underfunded and inadequate response to BC's overdose crisis. In 2017, my NDP opponent promised to fix the problem. Instead of fixing anything, deaths skyrocketed and a truly nightmarish homelessness crisis is raging out of control. Instead of the NDP's promised accountability, we got finger pointing, an unwarranted election, and now yet another NDP candidate beholden to big labor. Healthcare is failing the mentally ill and addicted, and now there's a major government investigation into systemic anti-Indigenous racism in hospitals.
I'm sorry.
The current NDP candidate could.
All right, and last we will hear from Jennifer Whiteside.
Thanks very much, Jeremy, and it's really nice to be here. Thanks very much to New Roots for organizing this event. I'm really pleased to be coming to you tonight from the traditional and unceded territory of the Kakite First Nation. And I have really spent a life working in social movements for whether starting out at the student movement when I was a student at Douglas College. I've worked in the women's movement. I've advocated and stood up for people and stood with people my whole life. The last 20 odd years, I've been working for healthcare unions, both provincially and nationally, protecting our public healthcare system, standing up for public healthcare, standing up for healthcare workers. And in the last 7 months in particular, I've been at the table with government and with health employers and healthcare workers on the front lines of the COVID crisis, crafting the solutions to protect seniors in seniors care. And in particular, seniors care has been a passion and something I've dedicated myself to for many years. So I'm running in New Westminster because it's a city I love.
Time. All right, so I only had to use the mute button on 2 of you. Not too bad. So thank you, everyone. Now we are going to move into some small breakout rooms. So each room is going to have 1 candidate and 1 moderator in them. The moderators, as soon as the room opens, they're going to make sure that you're aware of who they are.
So what is the Conservative Party? What sets you apart from the Liberal Party?
Good question.
That's a very good question. One of the historically, we are actually the oldest party in BC, and our first premier actually came from New West with the BC Conservative Party. So we have been around for quite a while. The current BC Liberal Party is a party that was, in many ways, came together as compromises in the 60s, I believe it was, to keep I think it was the CCP party and the SOCRED. And there were coalitions formed, and there's still many conservative members within the BC Liberal Party, but there's also a lot of non-conservative members within the BC Liberal Party. I don't know how much that answers your question, though.
In terms of policy, maybe?
Yes, policy. We are first and foremost concerned about taxes. Helping people keep as much of their hard-earned money as possible. We believe that the one person who knows best how to spend your hard-earned money is the person who earned it in the first place. and we always try to respect that. And we are pro-business, pro-economy, and those are our primary concerns. We
have a question. I think there is a question. Yes, so go ahead.
Maybe I can jump in, Benny. Hi, my name's Nina. I'd be interested because the Conservative Party hasn't really been one of the more well reported on parties and where your positions and platforms are in this election. I've been a little surprised to see the BC Liberals come out, a party of free enterprise, being so willing to take on so much in terms of deficit. And I'm curious about how the Conservatives, who would be a probably even more free enterprise, as you were alluding to, would help resolve the both short-term and long-term impacts of the pandemic in supporting not just businesses, but also people, and what your approach would be.
It's going to be incredibly complicated, reopening everything, getting things going again. We do seem to be going into a second wave right now. One of the things that I've been talking with people about, even as far as supporting people goes, is being more open and transparent. Saying that if there's this many more cases, this is what will happen, and communicating it clearly. As far as housing goes, the NDP did bring in rent freezes. I would want to look at potentially also freezing property taxes as well, because that's only going to lead to homes and not being maintained or ultimately being destroyed. I know I'm kind of rambling here, and I'm not sure if I'm answering your question or not.
Yeah, I mean, does the Conservative Party have specific platform commitments, though, in terms of addressing the pandemic?
Not the pandemic itself, I don't think. I'm going to be completely honest. We do have plans that have been circulating through Facebook and on our website, talking about how we do want to reopen the economy. We do want to get our forestry sector going again. That's a priority, because it creates a lot of jobs for a lot of people throughout the province.
Thank you.
Anybody else have a question? And so what about the PST? Do you support the idea of the freezing or canceling the PST for a year and then reducing it?
Our party hasn't specifically said whether we will get rid of the PST or not. I believe Trevor Boland would like to be focusing more right now on infrastructure projects and things of that nature, rather than giving up a large amount of revenue. Personally, I hate sales taxes of all kinds. If I had my way, we wouldn't have any sales taxes. I like the idea of being able to take an item off the shelf and knowing exactly what I'm going to pay for it when I go to the counter.
If there's no other questions, I can keep asking questions.
Okay, let me just check. Are there any other questions?
I do have a question.
Mike has a question. Go ahead, Mike.
I guess getting back to who the Conservative Party is, especially for the younger voters that don't know the history of the Conservative Party in BC, would you say you align yourself with the federal Conservative Party's views and platform, or are you something separate from that?
We are separate, very similar philosophies in most regards to the federal Conservative Party. On the provincial level, we're maybe somewhere between the Libertarians and the Liberals, if that helps. Like the
No. Okay. Another question then? Alan, no question?
Oh, I've got a mathematical one. The top 1% of income earners actually provide 20% of total income tax receipts. The top 10% of income earners provide 50% of income tax receipts. As a conservative candidate, will you advocate a wealth tax and inheritance tax on this class enemy so we can get them to pay more taxes?
My first response to that would actually be another question. What are those tax receipts for? Are they giving to charities? Are they making political donations?
No, income.
Last 2 minutes.
Okay. I wouldn't necessarily be in favor of raising taxes on anybody. I do understand we do want to help out the lower income earners more. In fact, my party has put in our platform that we will be increasing the amount that you need to make to start paying income tax. And we are looking at lowering the percentages for the lower rates. But again, we really don't want to be specifically targeting anyone or going out and raising taxes.
The bottom 50% of income earners pay 3% of the income tax total.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it almost fiscally impossible for them to pay less?
Well, there is less than 3%. We do have a couple other numbers between 3 and 0.
Okay. Is there another question? I thought we have about maybe a minute. If there's anything else anybody wants to add to the discussion, someone we haven't heard from.
I have a question.
Might have time, Tammy, if it's quick.
What are your thoughts on LGBTQ issues and immigration? How's that for quick? That'll.
You got like 30 seconds.
Okay. You.
Oh, you know what? I think we're being asked to leave. We're being asked to return to the main room. Sorry about that. It was a really good question. If we had more time, it would be good to hear the answer. But I think we do need to leave. And
hello.
Hello.
Hi, Cyrus. Just going to welcome to, I think we're room 5 is what we're called. You have about a minute to answer your questions. I'll give you, the 10 seconds. Time's up. And when we have the 2-minute warning, if you're talking, then I'm just going to throw that up. And it's probably all backwards on your screens, but you get the idea. Without further ado, I am going to throw the questions out to the floor. Tanisha.
I'll just start most of these. Hi, Cyrus. My name's Tanisha. I live in New West, and I used to be a student here. I am asking this question to everybody. So during the leaders debate, and really just all the time in elections, the issues of students are almost always ignored, which I find very strange because post-secondary education is what produces the future workforce for this province. So what will you and your party do to make post-secondary education more accessible and affordable for students?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question, Tanisha. Thanks for that. I think one of the things that I'm really proud about the BC Greens is our real focus and support of youth in getting involved in the democratic process. Like you said, I mean, I think for too long, I think our youth has been ignored when it comes to decision making in Victoria and or in Ottawa and any level of government. And I'm actually really proud of the announcement that the BC Greens actually made today, where we are going to be advocating, putting forward legislation if we are elected government to lower the voting age down to 16, so that youth will be able to have a say in the democratic process. In terms of affordability, I think the government, BC Greens, is going to be looking to support renter subsidy programs to help students who are just graduating to afford students.
Thank you,
afford housing. Sorry, thanks.
Sorry. You also have an opportunity at the end to meet with the candidates and follow up on your question. Sure. Are there any other questions in the room? I do have one here from Yvonne regarding strata insurance costs. Rapidly rising strata insurance costs have been affecting many condo owners in New West. What is your party, the BC Greens, doing to reduce strata fees for housing affordability?
Yeah, so strata insurance costs are obviously they're a huge issue. You know, I myself live in a strata, and my rates have been going up, and I expect them to go up even more next year. And you know, from a housing affordability, so that strata insurance is even just making the current situation, housing affordability, even worse right now, right? And you know, the BC Greens are really committed to providing targeted support to especially renters, low and middle income renters who are spending more than 30% of their income to on rent. And so they've introduced or proposing a rent subsidy program. And so that will be at least an effort to provide support. And you know, a BC Green government will be looking to put together a working group, a task force to explore how we can further alleviate some of the impact of this strata insurance, and that I think is part of increasing overall affordability.
Thank you. Good questions. Are there any questions from the floor? Oh, Yvonne has a follow-up. Many buildings have faced backlash in the city when trying to install electric charging stations in their own buildings. There's a very limited number of charging stations in New West. Is this an issue that your party has considered? If so, how will you work with the city to make this a reality as a growing issue as people are moving more to electric vehicles?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think this is, I mean, for the BC Green Party, I mean, I think this is all part of our move to, you know, a more sustainable green economy, and also you know, reducing our carbon emissions targets. I think in order to achieve our targets to reduce greenhouse gases, we are going to need to encourage electrification of our public transit, using the use of electric cars. And with that, I think government has a responsibility to work together to provide incentives to not only get electric vehicles or to have e-bikes, but also to provide incentives for building owners or new developments to install electric charging stations right off the bat at the beginning when they're building these developments, so that when they're built in the first place, you have those capability there to begin with.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Ruby,
hey Naomi, okay, thank you. Hi again, Cyrus. Sorry, I was in another room and then had to leave for a minute. So good to see you again. Maybe okay, it's moved on the screen. So a question about transportation, public transportation, right? Like, I'm a huge supporter of public transportation, and I'm very concerned, well, I was concerned before when we had a referendum, and now, and then again concerned when we didn't have enough investment, and now with COVID. So just some thoughts on how we can really support a better public transportation system for the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think again, it's kind of related to my last question, where, you know, answer to my last question, where we ought to be you know, encouraging wherever possible, you know, investment or funding that supports, you know, public transit and all active forms of transportation, right? And you know, when it comes to active transportation, we should be you know, pushing to allow you know, encourage cycling, safe cycling routes, increasing cycling infrastructure. When it comes to public transportation, I think we need to start to kind of revisit the way we fund public transportation. Right now, I think public transportation, especially transit, is so dependent right now on revenue from ridership and fares, and I think we need to start kind of looking at different ways to fund that. You know, even you know, and I think one of the things that BC Greens would be looking at is looking at things, revisiting things like mobility or road pricing. Those are some of the things that need to be put on the table to at least discuss, right? So for the question.
Thank you. Good question. We do have a question here from Tracy, and her question is about addressing unemployment around young people and new graduates. The pandemic has hit younger people where job opportunities have diminished, and jobs that are available are frontline work that is at minimum wage. What plan do you and the BC Greens have to support economic recovery, specifically for young people and new graduates?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think one of the things that is affecting a lot of young graduates today is feeling secure in their future, and from a security perspective, it's feeling secure in having a good paying job, feeling secure in their housing, and having access to affordable housing. I think it's important for young graduates to feel like they can take risk, like whether they want to have a small business, or start their own business or be an entrepreneur. And so I think it's important, especially in New West right now with the affordability crisis, that we need to support them in getting access to affordable housing. So with the renter subsidy program, it'll allow youth and young students to be able to get access to rent subsidy that will allow them to support their rent, and then be able to really focus on their job and their career. And I think that's one of the areas that I think the BC Greens can help to encourage.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the room? Rich.
Yeah, hi Cyrus. Thanks for being here tonight and taking our questions. And it was really a pleasure to watch you in your candidacy for the Board of Education earlier, and now in your role as the Green Party candidate. I just wondered if there's anything in general you'd like to say to small business people like myself.
Yeah.
Sorry, we missed.
Oh no, we have 2 minutes.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, so I think for me, thanks for the question, Rich. Small business, I think, is really the heart of our community. And like I was speaking in another room earlier that small business is what makes our community unique and so livable. I think every one of us has a favorite small business, and I think the pandemic has really affected a lot of the small business. And I think the BC Greens would be very much committed to providing support, especially right now in the pandemic. The Greens would be looking to provide immediate support to small business, especially like if they have a store and they're paying rent, providing that subsidy right away. And
so the first question, do you agree with the policy of providing a safe supply of opioids to replace a toxic drug supply that has resulted in the deaths of thousands of British Columbians due to overdose? If you do not agree with this policy, which is supported by experts in the field of addiction treatments, such as those of the BC Centre of Substance Use, what are your reasons, and how then will you curb the opiate overdose crisis in BC, which is worse than ever before?
I do not agree with that. I understand its motivations, but I ultimately cannot get behind using my resources where it's giving people like in this situation the drugs that they want. I get why they're there. It's just it's an end point in the road for people like that in that situation. So I'm timing myself at a minute. You didn't say a time limit, Jolene, but in that time frame, what I'd like to see is community organizations that already are in the infancy, allowing these on the provincial level to provide drug testing for people in the downtown east side, Wally and Chilliwack, so they can at least know if there's fentanyl in their drug supply. I'd like to carve out a place for that to be legalized, take the police out of it, make sure it's clear there's not going to be any prosecutions, call it a pilot project and test it out there so at least people can know if there's fentanyl in their X, Y, or Z. I think that's a kind of a rational starting point. And that was 60 seconds. I don't know how long I had on the question.
Sure. You know, I didn't have set time questions, just whatever works. The next question is, what is your position on homelessness?
On what, sorry?
On homelessness.
Homelessness.
Yeah, sorry, you can't hear me. Yeah, what is your position on homelessness? Being homeless.
I better keep my answer to 1 minute on this one, I think. Well, it's my position on homelessness. My belief and observation is that homelessness and indigency tends to increase in proportion to social assistance. If you look at jurisdictions around the world and you compare their relative generosity in that scale, it doesn't seem to eliminate indigency and homelessness and these kind of things. So on that rubric, I would really challenge that. And the other thing is a dependency mentality is corrosive to the human spirit. It's not a sustainable way of living a productive life. You can't be beholden to another person or institution and continue to subsist. So I'd really I oppose these things on that metric.
Hey, please explain what your position is on the pipeline.
I think there are a few pipelines.
Yeah, sorry, there's more. I have a few screens on the pipeline and the wet sweat and people's land and rights.
You were supposed to make my question easier. You just made it more complicated, a lot more complicated. There are a number of pipelines, and obviously we need pipelines. I mean, like we should accept that plain fact that there are many pipelines crossing British Columbia all the time, delivering essential products for the functioning of our society. I think the Kinder Morgan pipeline is probably pretty reasonable. I honestly think the TMX is probably pretty reasonable as well. It introduces the much tackier question of Indigenous participation in decision over these spaces. I would approach that on a private property rules basis and try to assess where First Nations genuinely had private property rights established on a factual basis through history. And in those cases, I would treat them as having a kind of veto or generic property rights over the spaces in which they claim sovereignty.
Okay. Please explain what anti-oppression or anti-racism work that you are currently engaged in.
I'm not engaged in any anti-oppression or anti-racist work. I really struggle to relate to these terms. I think racism is, to some extent, it's indelibly part of the human experience. It's indelibly part of humanity. But I also think we've created, the least racist country in the world, or perhaps the history of the world, and we should focus on why that's the case, and not so much on identifying why races need to become relevant and a primary consideration again. I think the rule of law can apply to all people from disparate ethnicities and backgrounds, and I think really that's a much better framework for assessing this problem than creating races in the political lexicon.
Okay. Next question, regarding home insurance for condominiums have increased drastically in the past year. Many mainstream insurers will no longer even cover the hyperinflated strata deductibles for major damage, some increasing by 1,000% in the past year alone. How will you address this issue so that British Columbians can access adequate and affordable insurance coverage for their homes?
I don't know how to solve this problem. I've been listening to it very carefully. I think one thing we should do is be mindful of what it might be telling us, right? Why are these private insurers having such a significant cost to insure the costs of our expectations in maintaining these properties? Or what is that? What kind of information is that telling us? And I don't know the answer to that, but I guess part of it has to be that living in these condominiums, you know, and in this density has a greater cost than we had hoped, or that we predicted, that hasn't been accounted for in the cost of purchasing the place or building it and regulating it. So I'd be hesitant to interfere too much with that information, because, you know, ignore it at our peril is what I would say.
Okay, you have 2 minutes left, so I have one last long question. The tax-free savings account is of great benefit to all the folks in BC, except those with disabilities. The federal government has exempted the TFSA from impacting any federal benefits, just as they have done for the Registered Disability Savings Plan. The provincial government has similarly exempted the RDSP, but not the TFSA. Presently, the only folks in BC who cannot benefit from the TFSA are the disabled. Do you favor continuation of the present policy, or do you favor following the federal policy to exempt the TFSA from unfavorably impacting government benefits to the disabled?
I've got 2 minutes on this question. Is that right?
Yeah, about a minute. I took a minute.
Okay. So we'll be finishing up. You know, I just plainly, I'm not conversant or familiar with the details of this problem, and this, you know, it's a sort of a niche problem, and I don't mean that diminutively, so, you know, I haven't looked at the data about disabled people not being able to invest in the TFSA, but certainly if there was some artifact of the legislation enabling the TFSA that prevented people receiving disability income from investing in it, that's contradictory. It's, you know, that doesn't make any sense, and certainly that needs to be changed. So I'd be happy to represent you and on that issue and make sure that that legislation could be amended appropriately to reflect that.
Sounds good. That is all the questions that our room has, and I'm assuming you'll be pulled away shortly.
I don't have any special effects to like.
Yeah, so you're welcome to use this time to say anything else that you wish.
Well, thank you all for attending tonight. Jolene, thank you for moderating and volunteering your time this evening to make sure those interested could hear all of the candidates.
If you just want to take a few seconds to just say hello to everybody or introduce yourself, or.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for being here. This is a great opportunity to I was going to say get to know each other. I hope there's a bit of an interchange. I'm not against that if you want to unmute. I just wanted to add something that I didn't get to say in the opening remarks that I was given a minute to express. And that's pretty significant to why I'm running. And it's simply this. I'm the mother of a homeless adult man who has a heroin addiction and is mentally ill. So my life is lived in the context of a nightmare reality that no parent should ever face. And as a result, I've been moved to come forward and stand up in the context of what is a pandemic, but for me, what is also the context of a nightmare death scenario. I mean, you know, we were recently told that British Columbia has the most per capita deaths from the opioid crisis by our federal health minister, health officer, I should say. So there's over 4,500 some odd deaths due to fentanyl poisoning in British Columbia in just the last 4 years. So my motivation is founded on a profound sense that we are not acting as humanitarians in the face of people who are dying on our own city streets. My son reports to me routinely when people he knows die, and they die in threes. in 2s and 3s and 4s. And when that happens, you know, it's a drug related. Well, we all know that it's drug related. He tells me it's drug related death. We don't know for sure if it's fentanyl or overdose, but anyway, in the context of who I am and why I'm standing up, I am especially upset with the Oregon government that committed just $10 million to solve a problem that is, well, it's not getting better. It's getting so much worse. And, you know, that $10 million,
we do have a question that just came in.
Sure,
if you just want to wrap up your thoughts there, and I'll.
Yeah, well, the 10 million is that the 10 million that the Mental Health and Addictions Ministry was budgeted is the same value that the Premier's office is given to run itself. So, you know, computer paper and printer ink, and this is unconscionable. This is an unconscionable reality, and I want to stand up and talk about it.
Okay, so the question that came in from was from Tracy. Questions about if you're elected, what are some tangible steps that you would like to implement to address the opioid and homelessness crisis?
Yeah, very good question. Thank you very much. So, you know, as a mother in the face of this crisis, it's daunting because drug addiction is so, it reduces people. And in homelessness in combination with mental illness, the kind of mental illness where you don't have the faculty, the presence of mind to make good judgments, it's just such a frightening, it's a vortex of fear and despair. And that's the world that I inhabit. And I'm proud to say I'm standing alongside the BC Liberal Party because Andrew Wilkinson is a doctor and has a perception of prescription for illness like this. He understands that process is involved in treatment. So pathway to treatment is an imperative. My son is desperate to get off drugs. He has been pursuing detox and treatment and living in lineups, wait lists, perpetual wait lists, and then finding himself without treatment at the end of a detox that took him 6 weeks to get into. In the meantime, he managed to overdose 2 or 3 more times. So it has the nightmarish quality has some ways of being manageable if the effort in the service area is coordinated. So it's graduated. You come into detox, you move to treatment, then you move to housing of some kind. Supported would be the requirement for him. But those supported systems are not truly supported. The treatment's never available when you need it. And the detox requires you to go into wait lists, weeks in length. And life and death is literally, I mean, it's like a knife edge. It's so difficult. So the treatment that the BC Liberal platform recommends is a pathways continuity is what we need, and the supports that go alongside to help people like my son who can't make it you know, through harm reduction without support. They can't make it through detox without support or treatment without support. So these are the things that the BC Liberal platform addresses.
Yeah.
Has that been helpful to whoever asked that question?
Sure. And there's another question that came in from Olivia. It sort of got 2 parts into it. I'll just break them out. First one is how does your party plan on addressing the current climate emergency? And does the party lay out any targets for reducing greenhouse gas emissions? And if so, what are they? And what policies would you suggest to reach them?
Wow, those are really great questions. I have to say, I can share information with you from the platform. And the platform is very new. As you know, we're facing a pandemic snap election, and information, I mean, this election is unnecessary, I believe. I just have to preface this question by saying that. It's an unnecessary election when it appears that the government was functional. It appears that it has the clear focus of being a gambit basically for John Horgan to find himself premier for yet another 4 years. And as a mother who has a son who will potentially not find anyone at the helm of mental health or addictions or any such ministry for months and months between now and when the election results are known, it's a grievous reality, and I'm disturbed, and I guess I just find it unconscionable. But I have some knowledge to share, and I would like to, because it's a very worthy question. It's an important question, and I am getting to it. So I apologize for this slowness, but please bear with me. Thank you for bearing with me. Okay, I'm struggling along here, but we have a wonderful platform, almost 50 pages in length, and a very important focus on climate change. And essentially, the BC Liberal government wants to become the climate leader that it was back in 2008 when it was first out the gate with the carbon tax. And, you know, it's got a vision to meet and exceed that sort of stellar status as visionary and world leading. And so this is why I'm taking the time to try to locate the information that I know you so desperately want, and I so desperately wish to share with you. So appreciate again your patience here. Thank you. The virtual world is something, yes, okay.
Just say if it's okay if you don't have the exact.
It seems that I'm not able to.
No, we
Such
understand. That's fine. But yeah, if you have any, well, they just gave us a few warning that they'll move you to the next room. But if you have any sort of personal thoughts on what you'd like to see be done on climate change, we'd love to hear some last few sentences from you. So.
Yeah, thank you very much. So essentially, I'm very proud to be part of the BC Liberal Party because their goal is to be world leading, and I think it's an imperative that
Columbia is the only province without an ethics commissioner to oversee municipal elected officials, so that if there's a complaint about a municipal elected official, the body could decide to perhaps remove the elected official. At this point, the way we are now, if there's an accusation of wrongdoing or something similar, there is no way to actually remove a municipal politician from office. So would you be in favor of an ethics commissioner who would be able to deal with what is currently a problem that doesn't have a solution?
Well, thanks for that question, Bureau. I have to say that is not an area of kind of provincial municipal relations that I am very familiar with. It is something that I'm certainly happy to take away and take some advice on and speak with people about before determining what is, or kind of making a statement about what is the best way forward. Yeah, so I appreciate the question. That's an area I need to do some learning in.
All right. Well, I'm looking for the people have asked the very basic, why should we vote for you?
Well, I would encourage you to vote for me and to vote for the NDP because I mean, the reason that I am running in this election is because I have seen up close and personal the impact of 16 years of Liberal underfunding, privatization, fragmentation of our social services, in particular, healthcare, the attacks on education, and the disregard for everyday people. And I see a moment here coming out of COVID where we have an opportunity. We've seen that we can leverage the kind of power and resources of government to protect people in the context of global pandemic. And we need to do that going forward in terms of how we rebuild our economy and how we rebuild our society as we move out of COVID. And I want to contribute to making that recovery a recovery that really puts people in their communities first, that helps rebuild healthcare, education, our social safety net, and that moves our economy towards a green economy that is based on what we call a just recovery, where we bring everybody along as we transition to green energy. I think we're in a real moment here, and we need to do everything that we can and work as hard as we can for the next 4 years to realize the promise of that moment.
Right, thank you. Vehicle insurance. What are that you know of the plans for costs, for putting it in the black, for rescuing it in some way, either ICBC or whatever the mix of things is?
Yeah, well, the BC Liberals really sort of did again left what's been called a dumpster fire with regard to their treatment of ICBC over the course of their tenure. They raided $1.2 billion from ICBC while hiking car insurance for British Columbians by 36%. They hid recommendations from an independent report in 2014 that would actually have saved British Columbians money. So when David Eby sort of took over the reins of responsibility for fixing ICBC, that is a long-term proposition. We were facing a 40% hike in insurance premiums when coming into the 2017 election, which the BC NDP stopped. So put a freeze on things, have worked to address the issues around stabilizing ICBC. We haven't really seen substantive increases in insurance premiums, and we are committing to returning the savings that have occurred in the system as a result of the reduced insurance costs expenditures during COVID, to return that to drivers as we continue to work on stabilizing ICBC.
Thank you. This one, it's almost like a personal thing, but it might have provincial implications. Vancouver Council recently voted to strike down no pet policies for rental units. And do you think BC should take a province-wide stand on this?
Well,
which stand would you support?
I am an animal lover myself, and I for many years had pets, and I've been in a situation as a tenant before where I wasn't allowed to have to keep a pet with me when I moved, and I understand how upsetting that is for people who actually feel like animals are an important part of their family. So I don't know particularly about a provincial policy. Again, this is an area of provincial municipal relations and jurisdiction that I'm not entirely clear about. If there is something though that in this regard that people of New Westminster would like their MLA to advocate for, should I be elected and be your MLA? I mean, my door will always be open for these discussions and to look at how we can address these issues. But I think that personally, I thought it was a good move that the folks in Vancouver made.
How do you feel about the return to school plan? And would you have done anything differently?
Well, I want to say that I really understand and can appreciate the deep anxiety that COVID is creating for people everywhere working in every condition, but I understand particularly in schools. I mean, I have many colleagues and friends who are who work in the education system. And that layer of anxiety and stress that COVID is placing on everyone is particularly acute in certain sectors, and I think education is one of them. And I mean, I've been very impressed, I have to say, with the actions and the expression of students in New Westminster around wanting to stand up for themselves and to stand up for their own protection and their own sense of security in COVID. I mean, I think that what we have learned through COVID is that we are learning about COVID all the time, and that it requires a nimble and flexible approach. And it requires us to really take Bonnie Henry's advice to heart, to be kind and to be calm, and to work together to put in place the plans that are going to make sure that people are safe and that people feel safe. I think the resources that have come through the provincial federal governments around increasing resources for additional staff, for personal protective equipment, for additional cleaning, etc. All of those are really important. And I know there are important discussions happening for students around better access to transit, to mitigate their exposure during break times. There's questions about how to deal with mask policies, etc. And all of those are important discussions to be having collectively. I know that the district is doing everything that they can to ensure that people feel safe and are safe. And I think that from the outside looking in, I think it looks like it's going reasonably well, notwithstanding that I can totally appreciate coming out of healthcare, that being in it is, you're really on the front lines when you're in it.
All right, I know we're going to get we had our 2-minute warning almost 2 minutes ago, so I know that Jeremy is going to be shifting people soon. Thank you very much for.
Great. Well, thanks very much, everybody, for spending some of your Thursday evening here, and I look forward to the opportunity to talk with you again. You can always pop us an email or stop by our campaign office down on Carnarvon Street.